Hi guys, welcome once again to my channel. Today I have an interesting project for us to do together. Um, if you have seen my channel before, thank you once again for joining. If you haven't, thank you and welcome to my channel. And if you could just subscribe to my channel or add some comment or something like that, I would be glad if you did. So what we are going to do today is quite a very simple project, but I think it will be interesting, especially the purpose uh, of this project. So usually, sometimes when you want to write a program, for instance, you are given a description of what you should do, but most of the time the problem is to decide how to break the project into pieces, into chunks, and then in order to have them work together. For instance, it's it's better to kind of divide the project and write different functions that are going to, when put together, when put together, they would, achieve the objective that you intend to achieve. So what we are going to do here is, for instance, let me just maybe explaining the project itself is going to clear everything out. So so what we are going to do now is we have to write a script that would enable us to list to record a student. It could be student scores, it could be football scores, it could be anything. It could be goods that are on sale, for instance, inventory. So you have to write a program that you could use to record some of these things, and then later on display all the information you have maybe in the database or in the file. Then it says that also it should be able to sort all the content of this database or list. Then it should also be able to sum all the total and tell us how many scores that are there in total. So what you are, then also we need to obviously provide a mechanism by which the user can put all this information. So what you are trying to do, just imagine if this was a project that was given to you. Maybe it's like a sentence. So develop an application that could you do this, and do that. Then it's up to you to kind of divide it into chunks, like I said earlier, write different functions that that are going to achieve the objective. So that's what we are going to do with this project. So without wasting any time, let us just proceed. I'm going to use VS Code. So what we are going to do, let us first of all start to write our function. So the first function we are going to write is, let's say, add scores. So this is the function that we are going to use to add scores, and it has one argument, which is scores. What we are going to do here, let me explain to you what I intend to do. Total scores, which is list. What we are trying to do here is the add scores function is going to take this argument, which is scores, which is the information that the scores that the user is going to type in. Then once it comes into this function, we are going to have a new list here. So with this new list, we are going to use it to manipulate the information entered by the user and then display all the information. So what we are going to do, let us use for loop. For score in scores, so these scores, the scores we have here is the same, is the argument that the user, or the information that the user put in. So we are going to loop through that, and then each of them would be a score, right? What we do here now is to call the new function that, sorry, the new list we just created, and the user, uh, the list method append to add each and every score. that the user entered. Then the next thing we need to do is to return the new list called total scores. So this function is just as simple as this, nothing else. And the next thing we need to do now, instead of going on to write the other function, so what I intend to do, let us first of all use this very function. To do that, we need to ask the user for information. And this is how we are going to do this. We are going to use the while loop and not while loop, the while through. While loop, yeah, that's correct. So we are going to use this and I will tell you why. So let's say, let me just type this thing out and I will tell you why why it is better to use this while through here. So we could say something like how many scores? Yeah, how many scores do you want to register? This is what we are going to do here. So because let's assume the user wants to record 100 scores, 10 scores, 3 scores. So what we are going to do, we are going to allow the user to register all of these scores at once before they proceed. Because if we did not use this while loop, so assuming the person wants to register 10 scores, so what would happen is they register one score, the application terminates, they register the next scores. So it's not feasible to use it that way. The best thing is to allow the user to type in all these scores at once. So that's why we are using this while loop to first of all ask the person how many scores. Let's assume the person says, okay, I need to register 10 scores. Then what will happen is that uh, then we are going to use for loop here to kind of loop through and make it possible for the user to enter the scores, the amount of times they entered here. So to do that, let's use for loop. We could say something like for score in range. Let's use range. Where is it? Let's use this here. Then scores. What we are trying to do here, so because the user has already entered how many scores here, we use range. You know that range is going to prompt, the user the amount of times they registered here. So if the user typed in 5 here, this with the help of range is going to prompt them 5 times, right? So we use range, and then the next thing we do, we then ask the user to type in the scores, right? So to do that, we say, let us say user scores, let's say input integer. Now the user is typing in the scores, input, type in, maybe we could say something, type in a score. Now the user is typing in the scores. The next thing we need to do, let us create a new list here where we are going to record all of these scores that the user is typing in. So let us call it database because it's going to act as a database, right? Let's call it database. And it's a list, new empty list. Then let's call that database here. So we can register all the things that the user is typing in. Now database. Let's use this function, this method again. We've already seen it before. Let us now input there the user scores that the user just typed in. Now the next thing we need to do, if you remember, our project says that we should be able to list all the information that we have in the database, right? So what we need to do now is to print let's format this. Here is all, or rather, here are all the scores in the database. Then let us call our function, which is add scores. So in this function, we are going to add our database. We're going to list our database, add scores database. And so let us give it a try. Let's try this. How many scores do you want to register? So remember, now it tells us if the user wants to record 10 scores, 100 scores, um, due to the help, because of this while loop, the user will be able to do it at once. So let's say 3. We want to register 3 scores. Then the next thing we need to do is okay, it says type in a score. Let's say 99. The next score, let's say 55. The next score, let's say 79. Then this is the output, right? This is the output. So after that, it lists all the scores. Let's continue with our project. We already have this first function. The next function we are going to write now is one we use to sort the information we have in our database or in our list. So let's create another function. Let's call this one sort scores. It's going to also accept one let's call it one argument called scores. And just like we did earlier, let us create a new list here. So let's call this one sort, maybe we call it sorted list. And so it's a new list. The next thing we need to do is to loop through the scores. Let's say for score in scores, let's assign everything to the new list we just created. Sorted list dot append. Let's append the score. This is almost the same as what we did earlier in the first function. The only thing we need to do now here is we are going to sort uh, the list. So let's call our new list once again. Dot sort. Let's use the sort method. So this is going to sort the method for us. And then the next thing we need to do is to return the new list after sorting. That's what we did now. We return the new list. Let me just explain something very quickly. As you can see, in each of the functions, I'm using all these variables. For example, we use scores here, we use score here. It's important to understand that all these variables we use in this function, for instance, is independent of the variables we use in this function due to scoping or due to scope, variable scopes. So these scores, I use scores here, for example, it has nothing to do, the scores you find here or the variables you find here have nothing to do with the ones you found here. Also, as you can see, under this while loop, for example, you can see I use a similar function variable names, for instance, like scores that I used here. So this is independent of these ones. So I could have used a different variable name here, for instance. So you could use something different. I just use it this way because it's easier to remember, right? So now after writing our sort scores, the next thing we need to do is to use it, right? So we could apply it here and print, let's say something like, let's format it. What do we have in the other? Okay, here are all the scores, okay? We could say something like here are all the scores after sorting. So we could use this and then call our sort scores function. And remember that function has one argument. So we are going to use our database name here. And that's it. This is as simple as this. So the next thing we are going to do, so just take a quick look at the function that we used now. So let's just put it to trial. Let's call this again. So how many? Let's say 3 once again. So let's put the first one. As you can see, we have 88, we have 35, we have 1000. So as you can see, we've been able to sort uh, the information or the scores. As you can see, the first item here was 88, and here the first item is 35. So we've been able to sort this. And let's just go on and say, okay, how many? Let's say 5. Then let's go with typing scores. Let's say 1. Next score is 89. The next score is 1000. Let's say 66. Let's say 9. So as you can see, we got it sorted again. The next thing we need to do, so we are done with this function. The next function we need to write now is the one we can use to calculate or to sum up all the scores we've got in our database. So to do this, let's quickly create another function. Let's call this one maybe some scores, sum up scores, some database, or you know what? You can just call it whatever you want. So let me just say some scores. And obviously, you should also have, let's say, scores arguments as well. It also has scores. In this case, we are not going to write any new list. Instead, what we could do is let's say total. Let's create a variable here. Total. Let's say something like total scores. Initialize it to 0. Then let us loop through the scores now. To do that, the same thing as we've always done for scores. In scores, for score in scores, let us call the new variable and increment that new variable. This should be score. I'm sorry. This should be score, not scores. So we are going to increment this new variable with each score. And then we go on and return the total scores now. So this function is also as simple as the rest. And let's go back here and call our new function. Let's print it. We will do the same thing we've done with the rest of the code. Let's say here is the total scores. We could just have it that way. We go on and call our function as well. We call this sum scores. And then we call our database that we wanted to sort. Let's see. Now let's let's try it again. Let's call our Python Python list. That's the name. How many? Let's say five scores we want to register. Now let's start to call our scores. Let's say 5,027, 99, 43. I'm just making up all these numbers, right? Let's see. Let's say 1. So these are our scores. These are the scores I just registered. And here we got them sorted. Here we've got the total here, the total score. The total score 6,070. So if you want to, work it out to see if that's what it is, I believe it should be. And so this brings our project to the end, to an end. I hope you enjoyed it the way I did. And if you have any question, just write it down somewhere in the comment section if you